All right, everybody. Welcome. This is episode 174 of the Omnic Lab. We're joining you yet again from a late Sunday night this weekend for me and a nice, bright and early morning for Andres on Sunday. But before we get started, let's give you a quick rundown of what Omnic Lab is. We're a strategy podcast about Overwatch. We dip in our toes into a lot of other different topics regarding that, but at the end of the day, we're still talking first-person shooters. We're still talking Overwatch, and this week is a little bit different because we're going to kind of do a quick blip on your radar, a shorter thing for you commuters out there going out for the holidays in the America region, especially, which is where we have predominantly the most of our users. So if you're in Canada, I know you're not subscribing to that sort of thing this kind of time of year, but it is the normal thing for most of the stateside podcasts. And Andres is stateside. Andres, welcome back to the show, as of course. Popping in from Georgia. What's up?
What's up, everybody? It is a bright and early morning over here. It's a nice day. We're preparing for Thanksgiving week. Like Rob said, everybody here in the States know how that is. Nobody here works. Everyone's eating turkey and everyone's hanging out with their families. So this week, everyone's preparing for that. If you guys are here in the US, happy Thanksgiving in advance. I hope you guys have a great weekend. You guys will enjoy it. If you're outside the US and still celebrate Thanksgiving, then happy Thanksgiving to you too. And for those of you who don't celebrate Thanksgiving, then that's okay too. You know, everybody has their own customs, and that's why we're here still talking all about strategy. Today we figured we would talk about 4 versus 4, a little mode in the arcade that is not one of the most popular modes, but I think it's a very cool little mode to play, and I can teach you a lot of like little things, especially those quick duels, quick formations, quick ultimate usage. I think there's a lot to explore there. So, quick and easy, today we'll be talking about 4v4 Deathmatch.
We've got an idea coming in the wings as well for upcoming weeks. If you guys are interested, it's some kind of short topic that I'm not sure how much we can expand, but potentially if we can book a guest, a little bit more of a general Overwatch guest instead of a specified hero specialist, I guess is kind of the way to say it. Maybe a little bit more of a generic, really good player type of a thing, and we can talk about just the art of not taking damage in Overwatch is kind of maybe a possible
Not
option. But
taking
let us know
enough
what you think about
damage.
that.
That
Not taking enough damage.
I think that art everyone has mastered already.
Yeah, everyone always knows how much damage they can take, so they just keep taking it over and over again. All right, so as Andres said, game night is going to be on the 29th, which is Black Friday. So if you guys are getting up in the early in the morning and running around, I highly recommend you avoid that as much as possible. Then you can participate in Cyber Week the following week, Cyber Monday on Amazon, and then you can sleep all day, show up with a belly full of turkey in the evening, and play game night all night long. And we can do that on the 29th with you. In addition, we still have our coaching sessions that we do every month on patreon.com/Omnic Lab. You can sign up there. You can hit the 250 or the platinum level and of the level of support, and then shoot us a message on Discord, and we'll book a session with you once a month. I got 3 of them in a row done this week, and boy howdy, this week has been nutty with busy days and late night coaching sessions that were a lot of fun. And we'll coach at all levels, but in general, it's just a good value for both of us to get to know you, and a value for you to kind of get to know us and the game. It's a good way for us to connect with you. Also, top of the show, just thank our sponsors. We've got our diamond sponsors. We got Refire, Shazir, Shepard, and Chris DePlaya. Thank you guys so much for your continued top level support. If you want to support us at the top level, you can get a shout out every single show, not just the first episode in which you pledge. And you have a slot on our website for sponsorship. If you want to promote anything, you want to show your Twitter, your stream, we got all kinds of cool stuff there. You can check out the privileges on Patreon. So, Andres, let's talk a little bit about 4v4. Let's start at the very front of the game mode, which is understanding the mechanics. So when you play Deathmatch, you can pick one hero each, of course, like normal. But at the end of the round, if you win, you lose the option of all 4 of the heroes you chose. And there is no lockout like a 2-2-2 format, despite this being a relatively new concept. There's no requirements. There's no restrictions. You can run all 4 tanks. You can all run all 4 DPS. You can run all 4 healers. Is that right?
Yes, just slightly different.
Or is it one?
You're thinking about 4v4, but
Yeah.
like regular 4v4. 4v4 deathmatch is actually even more loose than that. You can pick any hero, and anybody can. I mean, only one hero per team, obviously. But
Yeah.
if you die, you can swap heroes if you want to. You can stay in the same hero, and you respawn immediately. There's no downtime. There's no rounds. There's none of that.
Okay.
It's just a continuous game mode.
I'm thinking of 4v4 elimination, aren't
Yeah,
I?
you're thinking 4v4
Okay. My
elimination.
brain did not switch over to this one. Sorry.
No. That's totally fine. 4v4 elimination and 4v4 deathmatch are very similar, but I think that there's a very particular difference that makes them completely different modes. One, that you get instant respawns in deathmatch, and the other one is more of if you die, and you're out for that round, right? So dying
Right.
is extremely bad. In deathmatch, your death is bad, but it's only bad in the sense that you're giving a point to the other team. Every death is a
Scoring
point.
mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. Both teams are trying to get to a very specific score. I think that it's about 30 kills. If you get to 30 kills with your team cumulatively, you win, or the timer runs out. But normally, the
Yeah.
timer never runs out. Usually, one team will get to the 30 kills, unless both teams are playing
It's
incredibly
very fast paced.
passively or something. It's very fast paced, exactly. Because the second that you die, you're already back into the fray, into the battle. Um, and before we talk about 4v4, let's bring up Deathmatch just itself. Have you played much deathmatch? I know it's a mode that it's a little bit more niche. I personally have played a lot of deathmatch, but I know that it's not the case for everyone.
I tend to like playing elimination a bit more because the lives mean a lot and they're very punishing. So I did that. I didn't really do very well in it this time around, but I typically get more into the elimination aspect. But kind of deathmatch, if it's kind of fun, I like playing them. But going into a team based game solo for me lately has not been very appealing. And of course, getting home at night, I'm not really geared up to like go and try super hard, like get my try hard boots on after work when it's been pretty hard this week. So last couple of weeks and not so much, but maybe I'll jump in if we want to do it with game night or after game night or before game night, something like that.
I
That'd be
will
fun.
say it is a mode that can get very try hardy. And if you go into like
Mm-hmm.
the custom games area in Overwatch and you join any of the deathmatch modes, usually the most popular ones tend to be like Widowmaker lobbies where everyone's Widowmaker and is just practicing their headshots.
Or the gun
Um,
games. Where you're
a
just
lot of a lot
throwing
of
your gun
gun
games, yeah.
games also follow the deathmatch, except that in that one, every time you get a kill, you get transformed into a new hero, right? So you kind of keep it
Mm-hmm.
interesting in that way. Um, but it does happen that in deathmatch modes, just pure deathmatch, not 4v4, we're talking about just your individual, like you said, going in by yourself. It does tend to bring out certain heroes that are particularly good at 1v1 duels. And that's why I find appealing playing deathmatch. You actually get to practice those duels, those 1v1s very often and quite successfully. And this is why heroes like McCree or Genji or sometimes Doomfist get played a lot in these modes because those heroes are particularly good at 1v1s. They can usually duel just about everyone in the game, and you have a fair chance with almost all of the heroes. As long as you know what you're doing and your aim is relatively decent, you can basically go up against everyone. Think about McCree. I don't think there's a single hero in the game that just you can just say, "Oh, this hero outright kills McCree," right? Because if McCree lands a good flashbang on you, a couple good headshots on you, it could be anyone's game, right? Some matchups are harder than others, but in general, he's just very well rounded for that particular case. So you do see a lot of these heroes kind of like come up to like the cream of the crop, basically, in these modes. But that being said, team deathmatch does bring a whole new attitude to it. Like you said, Rob, it's a team game, and usually when you're playing deathmatch, the roster is not balanced to play these heroes individually. Some of them are clearly better than others. Like if you jump in with Mercy on deathmatch, good luck. You if you're really good with Mercy and your movement, you might still be able to get by. But you're just gonna be going up against a wall when you're hitting, the good
Mm-hmm.
McCrees, the good Doomfist, etc.
Well, the
Does it make
dynamic of
sense?
what tank people tend to pick is the most interesting aspect, I think, to this for me personally, because generally speaking, there's typically the meta is 2 DPS, a tank, and a healer, and that's typically how it's run. But the tanks are generally not like barrier tanks or low mobility holding up in a zone around a bastion or like a position. They typically are highly mobile units that have a lot of self sustain, like Roadhog, Zarya with bubbles, things that have some sort of major mitigation. Even Sigma, I can see being a force that can thrive because you can just close the barrier up, move shop, move around, get a lot of mobility, kind of get his stuff back. Diva's pretty good. Winston's great. But Reinhardt and Orisa kind of struggle a bit. And just how I've been looking at the tanks. But as far as the healers are concerned, Zenyatta's a real tough one to run here. But I found that like Brig is actually pretty decent because you do have a little bit of the mobility. You're playing her for the stun, and you just kind of pair up. So you're just running a duo kill squad with her as much as you can, and that works really well. Especially when you're running, like Andres was saying, with McCree's being super popular. Running a double stun is nuts because like her stun can't be deflected. You just got to stay away. Whereas McCree's can be like deflected with Genji, or you can kind of outrange both of them as a possibility. But McCree can just literally walk behind Brig and just shoot through her shield, and it basically run it like a mini Reinhardt with that. You know what I mean? So, and she has some sort of self sustain with her passive. But Lucio is really scary in this game mode if you got a good Lucio, because you got crowd control, you got lots of damage, you've got the mobility of running away. Running away is honestly one of the strongest things that you can do in this game if you're doing it well. Kiting is how you call it, basically, where you're running away from somebody and only taking shots when they come into your vision. So you're like timing when they come in. That's how I played Deathmatch a lot of the times, especially with Ana. Like go around the corner, turn around, wait for them to come through, and you queue up a, a sleep dart until they walk in the threshold. You're just like waiting for them. I sleep dart them and just walk away. A lot of the times they're just like call over my McCree and they just blow them up. But
Totally.
self sustain's a big feature in this. Self sustain and mobility is kind of what people go for. Kind of
Yeah,
in
I
a
think that
nutshell.
mobility is huge in this game mode, just like it is on Control, for example, which is game modes that the maps are very circular in that sense. There's a lot of places to come from behind, and there's no downtime, right? You kill
Yeah,
somebody,
no downtime.
and you're gonna encounter them like 5 seconds later, 6 seconds later, right? Um, both teams are respawning very close to each other. So the
You can
downtime in
counter very
between
quickly.
fights maybe just gives you enough time to maybe get topped off and get healed, and then you're back into
Mm-hmm.
the action. So there are modes that are very action packed, which I personally like quite a bit. I think that they lend themselves once the new patch is out, and we'll be able to play modes while we wait for competitive and stuff. Deathmatch is one of the best modes that I think lends itself to kind of like just jump in quick and be in the action, be controlling your hero, be actually playing Overwatch. Some of the other modes sometimes have a lot of downtime, right? Setting up your team in between rounds, and even in between fights, right? There's like a good chunk of like 10, sometimes 15 seconds where you might not even be fighting anybody. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
these modes are super fast paced, which makes it really good for one, getting warmed up, two, actually practicing mechanics, right? Like I said, you're dueling a lot of people 1v1 in regular deathmatch, and in team deathmatch, you are also doing those little duels, but with the added benefit that you have to work as a team, right? Then the other parts of Overwatch are coming together. Like you were saying, it's a team game, and it's been balanced and designed to be played with other people so that you can complement each other, right? Somebody might be tank and block damage, somebody is DPS and landing that damage and those skills, and somebody's keeping everyone alive and sustaining them through the fight. Now, I think that you nailed it in the head when you said one tank, two DPS, one healer is sort of your standard composition. I think that it's well rounded and it gives you some room to play, and it doesn't seem like super weak in any of the areas. I think there's still like some nuance in what heroes you're picking in that, but generally that formation will be very useful. There are other formations and other compositions that you can definitely thrive in 4v4 deathmatch, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
maybe touch into those. But maybe let's start with that one and work out from
Yeah,
there.
sure.
You mentioned sustain and mobility. I think that is very true. I think that even in 4v4 deathmatch is super important. Like we said, the pacing is super fast. So there's one tank that you mentioned, Roadhog. Roadhog is again one of the most dominant tanks in deathmatch, whether it be team deathmatch or just 1v1 deathmatch. He has a big health pool. He has very high sustain. He can heal himself, and the hook is one of the most amazing tools in to confirm kills in deathmatch. You just hook somebody, and more than likely they're dead. If you don't finish them off, your team will probably finish them off, and you're really hard to kill. Um, Compared to some of the other tanks, I think Roadhog is in a really good spot. Like you said, maybe Reinhardt, you could play him, but he's rather slow. A lot of his abilities are not going to be super impactful to get kills, but rather to protect your team. But when you're in maps where you're getting surrounded and constantly are having to fight enemies, uh, being able to hold that position becomes much less desirable, right? And you might just want to be able to have instead a lot more mobility. Like Winston, I think it's a pretty decent tank to be playing. Not as much sustain as Roadhog, but amazing mobility, right? You can be chasing anybody all over the map. Zarya can be pretty good too, again, because it's so hectic and the battles are so quick. Having somebody who can deal a lot of damage and then shield your friends and yourself from harm can be pretty clutch.
And Wrecking Ball is one that I actually didn't mention that I forgotten about, but Wrecking Ball tends to be a bit better if you have a particular setup in mind when you're running Kill Squad, like we talked about. Because a lot of times you can play kind of support plus one, and then the other two people kind of just hunt. Kind of like a wolf pack type of a thing where you just split
Mm-hmm.
up and go kill. But kind of the most effective strategy a lot of times tends to be, three together and one away, and then pincer or two and two. And generally speaking, there's another way to do the one of your pairs where the one that pairs up with the support ends up having a single sight line between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So like a Moira or an Ana or a BAP, for example, they kind of split a bit, and then the two other DPS kind of triangulate. That tends to work really well. But like with Hammond, Hammond is like really good like Winston and the other tanks because of his mobility. But he's, to me, like I like a lot of this, but I feel like the other tanks will edge him out as kind of like the difference between an S tier and an A tier is pretty marginal in this case as far as usability, because he's just universally always useful and good to switch into if you want to confirm something really quickly. But like his ultimate is kind of just like junk in this mode, and kind of divas as well. Like their ultimates just don't really get a whole lot of value a lot of times in deathmatch. Like they just do one thing and that's it. Whereas like Roadhog, once you confirm something with this thing or you zone somebody out, it's still going. And so if they spawn in, they basically have to lock down with their current position and avoid you until that's over. So it's really annoying with Roadhog. And then Winston, once his ult's going and he confirms kills, he just keeps going. So that's why these two heroes are kind of just a cut up above the rest. Sigma's ultimate, it's kind of in the same category. It does something, but it also can zone out and has the possibility of grabbing multiple CC targets and kind of helps him reposition a bit. So it's a little different, but I don't know. I still don't mind having Sigma and Wrecking Ball. Don't get me wrong, and Diva, like they're fine, but S versus A type of thing. You know what I mean?
And yeah, like we said, you can get a lot of compositions rolling in here. I think that more importantly, is mobility is going to be really good and sustain is going to be really good. So a lot of those heroes are going to be getting picked a lot. Now, if your team wants to go with something a little bit more chill, like a Reinhardt or a Norissa, you just got to make sure that everyone else in your team wants to play like that, right? Because if you're going Reinhardt or Norissa and your team is going like Tracers and Genjis, maybe like Doomfist, maybe like a Mercy or something like that, you're just not going to have the sustain to keep yourself alive, and you're gonna not gonna have the firepower behind you, right? Which is what makes those heroes kind of powerful. They can take a position, and then if your team is supporting you from there, it's really hard to get you out of that position, right? So it would work if your whole
It's also
team is
really
into that.
it's also really important to note that if you choose these other tanks as far as the tier list type of mentality that normally comes up with what's best, um, means that it's probably what's best in that particular game style of play. Because 4v4 could be played very passively, very protectively. You could kind of just go in with your 3 other friends, set up, and do that strategy where you're like, okay, we're going to play Reinhardt, we're going to play Orisa, and we're just going to sit down and we're going to wait for them to come to us. It's a very much of a pull strategy for getting kills. You can get kills when they come to you, but you're kind of forfeiting your initiative a bit.
Yeah,
Or maybe you're kind
totally.
of going a little bit more 50-50 with it. So it's not the wrong strategy, it's just not popular. That's kind of how I'm going about.
And it's not popular not because it's not good. Like if you have the friends and you want to go
Right.
into a 4v4 deathmatch, go for it. It just requires coordination. And in a game mode
Yeah.
that is happening so fast, and sometimes you might be queuing up with some randoms and stuff, you might not have the
Mm-hmm.
luxury of, having that coordination or everyone on the same page. Is like, okay, we're actually going to play around the Orisa and hold this position and advance
Right.
slowly, etc. You might have a lot of people that are just, running around wild, and like we've said, the pace of the game is fast, so you get killed and you respawn, and sometimes that just lends itself better to having heroes that are more independent, right?
Yep.
Like Tracer. Tracer is actually a fantastic hero in deathmatch because you can go anywhere by yourself. You have tools to get out of really sticky situations. And for the most part, you can rely on health packs around the map. You can get to those really easily yourself. So if you get killed, boom, you can respawn and you can basically choose to go anywhere, right? You don't have to be like, where's my team? Do I have to regroup with my Orisa? I'm the Bastion. I need to be behind her shield. No, you're very independent in that sense. You're like, okay, I can approach the enemy team from almost any angle because I know that I can get out of it. And obviously, the more creative you get and the harder, or the more creative your paths are, the harder you will be to kill as a tracer. But in general, very independent hero. Other heroes that come to mind like that are Soldier 76. I think not the most effective killer, but a very independent hero, and he can move around himself. He can heal himself, and he doesn't need a lot of the other teammates, right? Doomfist is like this too. He can move around the map so easily that he can meet up with his team from almost any position as long as you're good with his movement. Um,
May and Sombra kind of fit that same category where Sombra basically has the slipperiness of just getting out when she's not stunned. So if you're planning outside of ranges really well and you're getting hacks on targets that are really annoying your team, like if they're running the Doomfist against you, um, or they're running another May opposing you, or even a Tracer, if you can get the jump on them or wait for their enemies to take the jump on you, you can respond very, very efficiently. And May's also got the self sustain and the ability to freeze. So if they're running a Roadhog, you can really pick on them a lot. Just because you have that capability of chaining CCs once they're frozen. Um,
Definitely.
in, ad- in addition to this, Symmetra isn't really mentioned a whole lot. But if you want to go with kind of flip flopping the strategy, right? You're going outside of the hunting strat. You can basically lock down a zone and just sit there and wait.
Well,
Um,
I like that you brought up Symmetra because I think that there's three heroes that are not bad in deathmatch, but again, you have to keep in mind that you're playing with them and you have to change your playstyle a little bit.
yep.
Symmetra, Bastion, and Torbjorn. Three heroes that
And
can
I would even
actually,
loop in Junkrat into that too, because Junkrat can kind of shut down a zone
yeah.
with his
Although
trap.
although Junkrat doesn't suffer from the same ailments that these three do, Junkrat can definitely
Sure.
play the same style that these three
He's a
do,
bit more
but
mobile. Yeah.
he's very mobile. Yeah, with him you can actually move around quite easy. But these three other heroes are very mobile, and they sort of want you to come in to them rather than them come to
Yep.
you. When they're coming to you, they're at a slight disadvantage because they don't have the tools set up that really make him really powerful. But when you're coming to them, you're kind of like playing into their traps. So again, low mobility and cool abilities, but then you make sure that you're playing to that style. And make sure that your team wants to play to that style too, right? If you're finding yourself kind of like always trying to play catch up with your team and always having to go to them rather than come to you guys, you might want to think about maybe not utilizing these heroes and maybe going for something else. The first ones that I mentioned, I think, are the ones that have the most sustain. Tracer,
Right.
Soldier, Sombra, May.
May.
Then everyone else, I think, falls into like the second category where they can be really, really good too. But you have to play a little bit more mindful of your team. You have to be a little bit more proactive, right? Like McCree is still a force to be reckoned with as long as you're staying close to your healer. And maybe your tank's around 2 and they're kind of like protecting you a little bit and you're moving with them, man, McCree can be one of the best heroes to have in this mode. Same with Hanzo or Widowmaker. They're sort of the range that they have makes them a little bit more self-sufficient because they can keep their distance and they have enough mobility that they can kind of keep up with your team as well with the grapple, with the wall climbs and the dash forwards. They're still pretty mobile and they're killers, right? Like if you have good aim and you know what you're doing, you can rack up a lot of kills with these heroes. Reaper, likewise, very mobile nowadays with the changes he's had. A lot of self-sustain, especially if you're going up against an enemy Roadhog. Reaper can be one of the best DPSs to take and just bust through that poor Roadhog. Um, who else am
What
I
do we think
missing?
about Ash? Because I think Ash can induce a lot of
Ash,
chaos if the team keeps
Ash can be
splitting
really
up,
good. Yeah,
or
Ash can
they
be
do
really
the
good.
strategy of like, I guess to me it's like if they're gonna do the strat where you mentioned Andres, where they're gonna bunker up a bit or they're gonna wait for you to play into them. I feel like Ash, Widowmaker, and Hanzo are very, and even to a certain extent, Junkrat and Pharah are pretty good at breaking that down and saying no, 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 we're not gonna play that way. They're gonna shut it down real quick. They'll throw in some dynamite. They'll just wait it out for you to pop out. They may not even like sometimes I'll just throw dynamite in there and not even try to follow up on it. Just leave it in and
Mm-hmm.
flush them out like a funnel, and then pop them when they pop out.
No, Ash can be pretty successful. Genji, let's talk about Genji a little bit because I'm on the
Sure.
fence with Genji. I think he can be super powerful. If you're a fantastic Genji and you're really good with him, you can take over a game, especially if your team is supporting you. You have a good Ana that, is nanoing you and skipping you alive. But I think that with Genji, you really have to watch out what the enemy team is playing. Like if the enemy team is playing something like a Moira or sometimes Roadhog can be kind of like a little bit dangerous against you too with the hooks.
Brig.
Brig, oh my god, if the enemy team is playing a Brig or sometimes a Winston, it can be making your life pretty hard. And you might have more success with other DPS because you have to think about every time you die is a point for the enemy team. So Genji really suffers from the element that fantastic DPS, really good at like getting picks and getting those dives in, but if the enemy team is playing a lot of heroes that counter you, Genji does that have that weakness where there's just heroes that make your life hell and make you have getting kills really, really hard. And at that point, you might be feeding a little bit. And maybe I'm talking from like personal experience over here because I tend to do generally well with most of the DPS. But man, I've had a hard time with Genji. And granted, I'm not the best Genji out there, but I'm not like terrible at it either. But the second that the enemy
Yeah.
team has a hard counter or a counter to me, I'm like, ugh, I think I'm gonna go on something else, either McCree or Reaper or
Yeah, I feel like
Doomfist.
Hanzo, Doomfist, and Widowmaker are tending to be, and even Tracer to a certain extent, tend to be the ones that I see the most when I'm fighting. Because Doomfist has got the ability that if he's going to hit you with an ability, he's getting some of his health back and he's super
Mm-hmm.
durable. McCree is just like, he is not going to let down. If you're in a 1v1 and it's going to be close, he's going to make it really, really difficult on you. Because if he's
Mm-hmm.
landing shots, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And Hanzo's kind of the same way, but he doesn't have to be as close. And same thing applies for Widowmaker. If Widowmaker gets a jump on you, it's over. Like you don't get an option. There is no, you do not pass go. You do not collect $200. Like there's not an option. Um, but like Reaper, I feel like is super vulnerable in this mode, probably more so than any of these other heroes besides maybe Pharah. I can see a world in which Pharah could be really, really scary to go against if they're running a Genji. I feel like that's another big shortcoming. If you're gonna run a Genji, you're gonna run like a Doomfist. Like Pharah could just pick up a Mercy and go to town on those heroes.
If your team is playing with a Mercy, Farah can be pretty scary. In general, if you're just playing Farah by herself and you don't have that dedicated Mercy kind of helping you out, I think it can sometimes be hard just because you're going
Yeah.
up against a lot of heroes in small maps. There's not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like super huge verticality. Most of the maps are like Castillo or like Dark Forest, where you can fly around. There's open spaces, but there's not a lot of places to hide, and you can't fly too high, right? So
There's not enough
Farah,
cover.
yeah, Farah is generally kind of vulnerable unless you have that Mercy. And if the enemy team is playing heroes like Reaper or May or Junkrat, Roadhog, that Farah can just suddenly go crazy and run loose, right? There's nobody to stop her.
Yeah.
Um, and this is something that I was gonna bring up later in the show, but now might be a pretty good idea. We're saying like all these heroes are good, right? So there's a lot of room to pick, but because of that, there's also a lot of room to sort of counter the enemy team.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
that especially changes in this mode can sometimes be even more fluid. When I was playing and sort of doing my placements, I think I placed at like 3,400 in Diamond, like right before Masters, basically, and the
Okay.
games were getting pretty interesting at that point. I was playing with a lot of players that were like really good, and several times inside of the map, we had sort of like these sudden changes in our composition just based on what we were facing. So, like the first game, I started on Roadhog, but started having a lot of trouble because the enemy team had their own Roadhog. They had a Brigitte, and then they had a Reaper as well. So if I even try to get near them with Roadhog, it was like I would just
You're
get
just getting
destroyed,
killed.
stunned.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to heal because of all the hooks and Brigitte stun. And then they had a Nana as well throwing nades at me. So I was severely struggling. So I was like, you know what? I can't do Roadhog right now. I just went straight Reaper and sort of like started counter that aggression, right? At that point I didn't have to worry
Mm-hmm.
about the nades. I just had to watch for like the Brigitte stun a little bit. But
And the
for the
hook.
most part, all this stuff that was kind of getting me before, I could avoid, right? With Raid
Right.
Form, with my teleports. And then I was putting enough pressure on the Roadhog to, start killing him. Um, and so these changes happen quickly once they started seeing that they did their own swaps as well. I think that they went May, McCree, they kept the Roadhog, and then went Anna, right? So they made it a lot more difficult for me to get close to their Roadhog. And at that point, I noticed we had a Mercy, so I just went straight Farah. And even though they
Farah.
had the
Yeah.
McCree, against the May and the Roadhog, it wasn't like too hard. So like changes happen quickly in this mode, and you should be able to recognize like, okay, what are the abilities that are causing me a lot of trouble right now? Is there a hero that I know how to play that can maybe sneak around those abilities and maybe cause him sort of a hard time? And the whole
Right.
roster is available to you, right? It doesn't even have to be just DPS. I was going from DPS to tank. Sometimes I even swap to support a couple times. Like Brig can be a fantastic support to bring out in clutch situations and still use her sort of as a DPS frontliner. Obviously, you have to be a lot more careful after her changes, but she still sort of like plays that role. Um,
I
same with.
really like playing Lucio in this game mode. I don't know what it is, but anytime I'm playing deathmatch, if Lucio feels incredibly powerful. Because it's like I remember the last time this game mode rolled around, I placed really really high, but I was also playing a lot at that time. So like Lucio is just really really good because he allows you to just make any hero you play with shine. It doesn't matter who they are because you give mobility to heroes that don't have it. You give healing and more durability to heroes that don't have it. Or you're enhancing heroes that have speed to go faster. You're enhancing heroes that are durable to be more durable. And you're laying down a lot of fire. So you've got a lot of offensive firepower and repositioning tools at your disposal with Lucio. Not to mention, if you get into a tight spot, you guarantee the win with that ultimate. It's pretty gross. So,
Absolutely. I think a lot of the
and
supports actually
yeah,
are really insanely good in this mode. I think
yeah. You could
Baptiste,
even run two supports
Anna.
and just run Lucio's DPS more or
Yeah,
less. You know what
no,
I mean?
no, totally.
Yeah.
Like you can definitely run two supports and have one of the supports concentrate a little bit more on the offensive side.
Baptiste
And I
especially.
think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of supports that can do that. Baptiste, Anna, Zenyatta. I think Zenyatta is probably the weakest support in this mode,
Yeah.
and I would
Hmm.
usually only bring him out if you already have another support and use Zen more as a powerhouse kind of like a small turret, right? A staggered turret because
Yeah.
his
That's a good way to put
hits
it.
his hits are hit really hard. Discord Orb makes it easier for your entire team to confirm kills, and then Transcendence actually counters a lot of the ultimates. But in
Yeah.
between, Zen is very vulnerable, and especially in a mode with such high mobility and very little downtime, there's not a lot of room for him to reposition. And you might want to have somebody kind of babysitting you. Also, his healing is very low, so keeping somebody alive against high burst damage of the other heroes is gonna be hard with Zen. But with Anna and with Baptiste, you can actually keep up with a lot of the damage, right? You have the tools to do it with the nade and with your immortality field. You can actually keep people alive even through ultimates. So I think those two healers, Baptiste and Anna, are incredibly powerful. Especially you have like a good
I'm
Anna. Whew.
I'm glad you brought that up because like the ultimates in this game mode in particular are very different in how you kind of evaluate them, and how you gain benefits from them. Anna's ultimate in this game mode is actually better than it was in prior ones since she now can get a burst heal out of that ability. It makes it way more appealing, and it also makes you more durable again, makes you deal damage faster. Baptiste's ultimate is a big surprise box. Like I've seen some really crazy clips just outside of this game mode when you're playing competitive. If you put this right in front of a winding up fire strike from your Reinhardt, it does so much damage. It is one of the most deadly things that I've ever seen. Is a fire strike coming through a Baptiste amplification matrix, and it just nuke people because it goes through barriers. But like Andres said with Zenyatta, Zenyatta's thing is meant to be a you don't do anything in this space type of an ultimate for a short time. But in deathmatch, ultimates don't really get their value like they do in a traditional game mode where you're basically doing everything is geared towards economy, getting the ultimates, blocking, using them to gain objective ground. This game is all neutral game, and since the game has adjusted all of the roles to be fitting in a 2-2-2 format, and they've lowered the amount of or they have increased the amount of time that it takes you to get your ultimate. And also now you're down to 4 players. On for healers, you're getting your ultimates way slower now, way slower. And because of that, that's why Zenyatta is way less appealing. He's getting his ultimate slower. He's not able to deny as much as he would have prior, and he's a sitting duck for longer. Usually, when you have more players, you have more opportunities for peel. You have way more opportunities for damage because there's more things populating that area for you. But like we said with the other heroes with mobility, Lucio gains way more benefit because he doesn't necessarily care about his ultimate per se. His neutral game is really powerful because of all the regular tools and the neutral. And what we mean by neutral is basically any point in the game where ultimates are not being played. That's what we call the neutral game. If there's no ultimates flying around, that's neutral.
Mm-hmm. No,
So
yeah, absolutely, and I think that you have to think about ultimates a little bit differently because in regular modes in competitive, some of your ultimates can be well spent and not get a single kill, right? And you could still say, no, that was a good ultimate, right? Because as long as you're using your ultimates for the objective, and that ultimate is guaranteeing you capture the point, or you get the payload to the finish line, or you preventing them from getting the last stick, or something like that. Even though you didn't land a single kill, if your ultimate guarantees you those events, it's still a good ultimate, right? But in deathmatch, you're not playing for those objectives. The only objective is to rack up kills. So the ultimates become valuable in the sense of how many kills can you get with this ultimate is really the only value that you can get. Maybe you can argue that denying kills with your ultimate can also be good because you're denying points to the enemy team, but not nearly as good as getting the points yourself. Because at the end, it doesn't matter if the enemy team has 29 points. If you get to 31st, then you still win, right? So the number
yeah,
one goal in the game is you have to rack up points. If you can do that a lot with your ultimates, great. Because some ultimates can kill you, can get you like 4 kills right there and there. I was gonna say 5, but it would be impossible to
yeah.
get 5. Well,
There's also
maybe.
there's also a pretty big delineation between Zenyatta and Lucio with how they deny ultimate, or with how they deny stuff with their ultimate use. Zenyatta does nothing during his ultimate. The best thing he can do during his ultimate is make sure that he has a Discord setup that he retains vision on during his transcendence.
Hmm.
Meaning that you put a Discord orb on a target, and that target is receiving a lot of damage or dying during the scope of your transcendence, and you're also denying stuff. That's ideal transcendence use. But in this game mode, Lucio is able to deny that and also gain an offensive advantage by using it preemptively or using it defensively and then confirming kills. So it's a little bit more of an enablement tool for gaining kills as well as being a protective thing. Same thing with Brigitte's ultimate, right? Brigitte's ultimate gives you retaining an armor, durability, mobility, and it's just really, really good because you just basically squat up, use rally, and go at them. Moira's kind of the similar sense where she's able to play safer and be less vulnerable. She gets a little bit of passive healing and she gains a lot of range. And I do coaching sessions a lot with Moira lately because Moira is kind of the flavor of the month right now for the meta. And so a lot of people that I'm doing coaching sessions that want to do support oriented ones want her to be coached on. And the first thing I always teach them is like, how many orbs are you doing? Because if you're not throwing orbs out pretty much on cooldown, you're losing a lot of your versatility and your ability. And with the lowering of your damage and the lowering of your self-sustained heal, your orbs are even more important now. And when you use your ultimate, you basically can wait to use your ultimate as soon as you throw an orb out and then you ult. And by the time your ultimate's over, within the wind down, you only have to wait about a second and a half and your next orb is up because of how long coalescence lasts. The whole thing is about uptime for your orbs and how you're getting to your next ult, how much you're maintaining damage. And coalescence is it's extremely scary to go against this in game mode, even though Ana is very, very powerful. Like honestly, you could supports are just crazy strong in Overwatch. At the end of the day, I mean,
Some supports are really strong. Yeah, like I said,
yeah,
like Anna, I think is one of the best heroes in this game mode. She's the whole package. She
yeah,
can
she gets everything.
she can heal almost everyone in the roster, no matter like the playstyle that they like playing. Her tools, the sleep dart and the nade, are just so strong, and
Her damage is good.
She has them all the time. Yeah, she can do damage herself, snipe people from afar. Her mobility is not the best, but like I said, if you're good with Anna, that's not as much of a problem because getting close to
Yeah,
a good Anna, one is really hard. Two is really dangerous. Like they
her
can
hitbox is
sleep.
stupid too.
Yeah,
So there's
she's
also
really
that.
squishy and elusive. So honestly, I think she's really strong. Baptiste is really up there too. They're the whole package. They're heroes that can bring so much utility to your team in the sense of they can get kills by themselves. They can keep your team alive. All of their tools are useful at almost all
Mm-hmm.
situations, and they get them often. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, overall great heroes to play around. Um,
and McCree's ultimate's great because it's a reload.
the last thing maybe I wanted to touch to close the discussion on 4v4 is that a lot of people throw the mode away because they're like, this is not competitive, this is not related to what I want to do. This is not Overwatch, right? And I would argue to the contrary. You're actually playing with some of the most pure form of Overwatch. Sure, it doesn't include all of the layers that the competitive mode has is much more complex, right? Because you're having to take all the concepts that you're utilizing in deathmatch and then applying it to even more, right? Team coordination,
Mm-hmm.
playing for an objective where kills is an easy way to measure success, right? In deathmatch,
Yeah,
it's almost like the game has been simplified. Hey, there's no extra stuff over here. You don't have to worry about all this stuff. Just worry about the mechanics of the game, which I think is really powerful, especially for us that we do coaching and we encourage sometimes other people, hey, try this mode if you're really trying to practice this. I think that team deathmatch in particularly allows you not only to interact with all your abilities and how they match up against a wide variety of heroes in the roster, that 1v1 duel that we've been talking about, it also ties it with your team game, right? How should you be playing with other people? How should you stay aware of your
kind of
teammates?
helps you
And
to watch your teammates as well as your enemies.
yeah, exactly. And that's a very important skill just in Overwatch in general, right? In the real game mode, in competitive, you have to be doing that all the time, plus all the other objective and composition and positioning and all these other things that you have to think about, right? But in this game mode, you're just going to like the raw mechanics. How do you shoot? How do you play with your teammates? How do you position with your teammates to be better than the enemy team? And just like basically like the raw mechanics of the fight itself. You're not having to worry or think about objectives or anything else, which I think is a great tool to practice. And just in general, be like, okay, I want to practice my mechanics with other people with a wide variety of heroes in the roster. It's a great mode to do it. I think Deathmatch 1v1 is also a great mode for you to practice your 1v1 duels. Of course, there's always that one dude that comes and third parties you and like kills you at one point. But for the most part, you're really practicing that 1v1 most of the time. So I think that they're very useful modes for that raw mechanic practice. I know I keep rambling over here, but
It's really fun to kind of look through this too, from time to time, just because this is kind of a different approach. Like, this is the traditional FPS starter, like your starter pack. This is original Doom. This is your Wolfenstein days. This is your Halo 1 LAN lobbies, all the way in through the current Halo setup. You've got console and PC. You got CS:GOs. You've got you got pretty much anything in that swath. And it's really fun because this is pretty much the closest thing that Overwatch gets to what the Destiny PvP is. And I've done a lot of Destiny PvP up in this last year. They released new stuff and they moved it over Steam, and I played a bunch when it first launched over there. And I actually was able to grind from like 0 rank and get not super high, but I got like well above what I thought I was able to do, and the guys were surprised because there's a rank restriction on a gun that you get that's really, really powerful, and it's kind of like the baseline gun you should get because it's that good. It's like you just need to get one because it's amazing. And the only way to get it is by getting a certain rank in ranked mode. You can't get it outside of that. And then once you get that, then you also have to just win a certain amount of games. So most people win a bunch of games, but they go win, loss, win, loss. And how their ranking system works is you get a lot of rank by getting streaks. And it's kind of the same in Overwatch, but it's a little bit more normalized. You gain your rank as your win rates are positive, right? You're above the 50 percentile. Eventually you'll climb. That's kind of how it works. But in this system, it's the same way, but you're gaining really fast if you get streaks, and it goes up to a 5 multiplier. So if you get up to the 5 multiplier and you keep winning, it's nuts how fast you're winning games or how fast you're climbing. And I got the rank achievement way faster than I got the total wins. So I was just playing for a long time just to get my wins up. I was like, well, I got the rank part. This is easy. But like, their game mode is really interesting because you've got zone controls. And in this game mode for PvP, in Overwatch, you can kind of simulate that where you're not really going to control the zones, or you're not going to like capture places or go plant a bomb like in Counter-Strike, but you are planting yourselves as a group of people to position in order to gain an advantage. And like, those systems are a little bit more objective based, and the kills are less so, but that's what you would do in Halo. You're playing these smaller styles of killing people and maintaining gun. There's always some kind of objective, but in this setup, your objective is maintaining your teammates so that they're not getting constantly picked off. So paying attention to your teammates is just as important. And even if you've got, like, if you're playing Genji, for example, you got to know your limitations. But at the same time, it's like, well, one of the fun things that you can do as Genji is literally just like baiting the enemy to go kill your Ana. And then once they go after your Ana, you just dash and swipe them, and the Ana's probably got to land a shot on them, and you kill them. And you just rinse and repeat. So there's some really, really fun strategies you can kind of just play with here. And we hope that you learned something through this. Maybe at the end of the day, I think that it's really, really good to try something different, and maybe that can just improve your dynamic understanding of a given hero. So even if you're not willing to like really jump into the game mode, maybe just give it like the 10 placement games or a little bit more. Play your placements, try to play the same hero a bunch, and then see those opportunities when you can switch. And maybe that's your goal, is seeing how switches and counters work. Or maybe your goal is like, I don't care how hard it is, I'm gonna stick to my Genji, I'm gonna play it. That's also really fun.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair too, right? Because I think it's an appropriate place where you can kind of like brute force certain heroes and
especially
be like,
if you don't care about it.
yeah, I'm gonna learn how to play against these heroes with Genji, no matter what, right? I think it's a good place to do it. You do get the support from your team, and if you have like a teammate, for example, Anana or a Zen that likes playing with you, that is a great mode to like go in and practice that duo. And like I said, with the new game mode coming out, where you're going to be able to queue for other modes while you wait for competitive or the mode that you want to play. I think deathmatch is going to be one of the more popular ones, and I encourage you guys to try it out.
Absolutely. We got a couple iTunes reviews real quick that I'm just going to read off before we close out the show here. But I just wanted to say thank you, you guys, for doing these. It means the world to us to get these, and especially from those of you outside of the United States, because we're not getting as many reviews in those countries. And so, first and foremost, is most informative Overwatch podcast, hands down. High praise from the 5-star review by Senior Jamal from Canada. Says been listening for a while. Best thing he's found. He says things you can expect with the show is PTR rundowns, micro, macro strategy, master GM guests, specific breakdowns, consistent content release, little owl Overwatch League talk as we're kind of having too much fun. He also said that the show is really fun without too much small talk and also without a lot of inside jokes. We do keep it a bit tight with just maintaining our constant thing here. And also says thanks from Toronto. So big thanks to you, Senor Jamal, and also from, I'm going to try not to butcher your name, Jonich Horn from Germany. So another German review, which is great. Says thanks for always keeping us informed, simple, right to the point. Big appreciation from people leaving reviews in other countries. So if you haven't done that, highly encourage you, if you can, leave us an iTunes review. It helps to get us boosted up in the ratings and also in the search engine there. Also, I'm going to put this out there. This is something that I haven't done yet, personally, but if you would like to, we are now level 2 boosted in our Discord,
Level
which
2?
means that if you would like to submit your own version of a small graphic for the Discord, I will take submissions. You can send them to me directly, however you would like to do that. You can send them to me on Twitter. You can send them to the email for the show at omniclab.com. Or sorry, at omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. I think that's correct. You can also send them to our website. You can ping me and Andres in the Discord, whatever you'd like. I'm just going to start taking submissions. We're also looking for an artist that would be willing to make GIF emotes for us, because I think those are hilarious, and we have a lot of slots for our Discord now. If you have a funny one that's not GIF, we'll take your ideas because we just have a bunch of slots. So yeah, just submit us some art if you're interested. Artists out there, creatives, people that love to be the meme king and queens, feel free to send us any ideas you have out there. It would warm my heart to kind of see some fun jokes. I know that we have a really good one right now called Hanzo Senpai, where he's doing this really smug look. It's like an MS Paint look of smiling Hanzo. It's one of my favorite emotes in the Discord that we had from a long time ago. But yeah, if you got an idea, please send it out there. Even just utility things. I made one that's like check the pins or hype. But I think that's going to do it for the show, you guys. I know it's going to be a short one. Wish you guys all a great holiday and a good time for you to spend your money on Christmas gifts for cheap. Uh, Also, a reminder to keep an eye on the Overwatch League store on Into the AM, as well as the individual tweets from Overwatch and Blizzard, because they're always going to have a massive clearance sale to get rid of their old merch before the new merch comes in for Christmas. So definitely be on lookout for that. That's going to do it from me. Andres, let's just close out and let people know where they can find us. So where can they find you?
If you want to find me, you can do so on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games.
You can find me on on Twitter and Instagram with the tag Not Rob. I have actually done 2 streams this week already. One was today with some old friends from my graduate school. One of them actually lives in China. I've been doing some Pokemon Sword and Shield, brand new, fresh playthrough. Super fun, crazy game. It's making competitive very approachable to new players. So if you're considering you like JRPGs and you want to get into like grinding and the fun aspects of JRPGs, you can go do that. I'm not going to be the one that teaches you there. I have good friends that love doing that, so they just kind of give me stuff for free. They're like, hey, you can't get this in your game, why don't you take this? So we'll see how it goes, but we'll hope to see you guys next week as well for game night, or this week I guess it is now that it's like past midnight my time. But I'll see you guys there. Remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. We will see you in December.
have nothing more to teach you.